I am the best. Okay, no, not me. I don't mean it. I'm actually just quoting President William Ruto, who earlier this week rolled up for himself a big, beautiful gift of attributes, combining all the 4 presidencies before him. From Jomo Kenyatta to his son Uhuru Kenyatta and everyone in between, President Ruto delivered a detailed self-appraisal, crowning it with the declaration that he is the first person of his academic qualifications to occupy State House. We have the self-appraisal report. Online, the e-citizen appraisal is not looking good, as the Auditor General reveals that over 40 billion shillings cannot be accounted for on the government's services digital platform. On the foreign front, an appraisal is coming up in the United States Senate that could result in the downgrading of Kenya's status as a major non-NATO ally. Apparently, China is the matter at issue. We have that diplomatic report. On Jamila's memo, we cannot play with the future of millions of Kenyan children. A memo to all adults. Bonyo's bone lies between 1 term and 2 terms, and picks a bone with Mudavadi's assertions on elections in Africa. Kaikai's kicker is on the anti-corruption watch tonight, and the match between big fish and small fish. On My Take tonight, we go deep into scripture. And let's pray. Sorry, pardon me. The news gang is here.
I have combined all my predecessors, you know. I have the courage of Jomo. I have the understanding of Moi. I have the education of Kibaki. And I have the plan we shared with Uhuru Kenyatta. I have no excuse than to do everything that needs to be done in this nation.
Welcome to the program. The hashtag is NewsGang at Citizen TV Kenya. If you want to send us a text, the number is 22422. We'll be getting to your feedback in a moment and to the other topics. But first, guys, what a nail-biting match that just concluded around, what was it, just close to 9 p.m. Obviously not the result we're hoping for, but it's a good result nonetheless. Yes, Jamila?
It is a very good result. Yeah. If you look at Group A now, we have 4 points and we've topped the group after playing 2 games. And Yvonne, let's be honest, before the tournament started, there were a lot of concerns about the team that we have. There were worries about them even making it out of the first round. And I'm not saying they've already made it out of it, but this is actually a good result. At the last kick of the game, we were worried that Angola had scored.
Yeah.
And you could hear the disappointment around here. You could hear the sounds. And I'm thinking, oh no. But then now, of course, the goal was ruled out. But as you said, it's a game that had a lot of drama. Of course, our goal was a penalty. Yeah. They scored, I think, after how many minutes? 12 minutes? Was it 5 minutes? I think. I can't remember. They scored after 10 minutes? 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we equalized with the penalty through the amazing Rolls Royce. And then now we had a red card. And, you know, we're playing with 10 men. Yeah. So there's already a disadvantage there. And the worry is, are we going to be able to hold this and get the draw? Are we going to be able to win, or will they beat us? But we got the draw. We had 4 points in Group A. Morocco is in second place with 3 points. But remember, they still have a game that they haven't played in this group. They are meeting us on Sunday. Before they meet Zambia the week after. So we really need to try as much as possible, Yvonne, and not lose. The draws are okay. They are welcome. But of course, we want the 3 points. Yeah. Motivation of 1 million shillings and for every win, for every player and technical bench, and 500,000 for a draw for everyone. So basically, wanafaa expect 500k check kwa account kesho asubuhi after this result.
Right.
But so far, things are looking good.
Yeah, so far, so good. You know, when I was speaking to Mike earlier during the live broadcast, he said when Angola scored, you know, fans were already walking out of the stadium, of course, with their heads in their hands, until they saw, you know, the VAR and the goal was disallowed. So a sigh of relief, 1.5 million in the bag, enough motivation now, Jay?
Well, Yvonne, I think one thing that is clear. Harambee Stars are determined to make Kenyans proud. And they are shown the pitch, despite Angola obviously being the stronger team and outperformed them, because if you look at possessions at one point, it was 64 to about 36 or something.
In Kenya's favor?
Yeah, no, in Angola's favor.
Angola's favor.
And they had the control of the game.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, the results proved one thing, that Kenyan Harambee Stars are determined to show some muscle and to show some level of excitement in this game. And again, thanks to the 12th player today, 46,000 people showing up at Kasarani is quite massive. And that tells you that Kenyans are rallying behind this team. And we are going into the weekend a very, very happy nation with these results.
Yeah, I know. We've talked, especially here in various meetings, about the next team we're going to meet, and that's Morocco. And I've heard all those things. So I'm the non-footballer in the team, but I don't know, Morocco doesn't play in what? High altitude, low altitude? Yeah. Yep. And this altitude is higher for them. And I'm hoping that they're out of breath.
Playing at night.
I'm hoping that they're out of breath. Aren't we all, Linus? Throughout the 90 minutes.
I think, well, you said you're not a football fan, but the first thing you should not have in your mind is superstition. Yeah,
is that not the name of the game?
The Moroccans are here. They're not coming to play with the weather. They're coming to play with our team. And so altitude won't matter.
Okay.
And I think today's will turn out to be the most important result for Harambee Stars. Because that's 4 points already.
Yeah.
Meaning we just need to have one good result. Okay. And, we still have Zambia coming up.
And that one good result is a draw or a win?
A win.
A win.
A win.
A win against Zambia.
Okay.
And we saw Zambia today. They look beatable. I think Kenya can handle Zambia comfortably.
Okay.
What I don't want to overpromise
wow.
It's Sunday.
Yes.
Playing Morocco is going to be tough. But this is a very good result.
Yeah.
I think we can now wait for Zambia. Whatever we do with Morocco is fine. But I think the match we should prepare for is Zambia.
Which is when, by the way? When are we playing Zambia?
Sometime next week, the last game.
Okay,
yeah.
So it's after Morocco, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can take a break during Morocco.
We actually play them on the 17th. We play them on the 17th of August.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
just one more thing is I think that the fan behavior, I think earlier on we had seen FKF and the government asking people to be well behaved as a result of the fine that were imposed on Kenya the other day.
Yeah.
I think we need to get a good report.
Yeah.
And fans must behave when they go, because it's not a Meji Derby.
Right.
Yes.
So we got fined already, 2.9 million.
And those fines...
I hope they behaved today.
They did.
I haven't seen any...
Based on the reports that we've seen so far.
But there were some complaints. Or not being allowed to bring in chicken.
But Jamila, why do you want to
Goma,
to Kasarani?
Chihuahua, boy.
Yeah.
That's for the Mashemeji.
And even those people who say chihuahuas, let me tell you, not every small dog is a chihuahua. But that's a story for another day. I mean, we use that term very loosely around here. No, it's true. But anyway, that's the much I can contribute to this conversation around football. So go Harambee Stars, go. We are rooting for you all the way. Sunday, I'll be watching like this.
Against Morocco.
We'll
be fine.
Avoid Jamila when you're watching.
Sorry?
Avoid me.
Avoid, yes.
Oh, no,
That's
here we
true.
go. Premier League has not started. Arsenal hawajacheza hata game moja. Where is this going?
Yeah. Well, nobody mentioned Arsenal. Nobody mentioned Arsenal.
That's where this conversation was headed. This
is
where this conversation was headed.
Oh, that's where it was headed?
Yes.
I was going to say you're just noisy to watch the game with. But, so let's talk about other things this week. So that's an appraisal of how Harambee Stars have performed so far in the Chan tournament. But there was a different appraisal that happened earlier this week on Monday, the president had a lot to say about his performance in office since he took office in 2022 September. I want us to listen to the president himself, Tutu, where he says he has no reason to fail and why he is fit for this difficult job.
Mwingine walinitangulia wangesamehewa. Mwingine angesema sikuwa na elimu ya kutosha. Mwingine angesema nilikuwa mzee. Mwingine angesema sikuelewa sana. Lakini mimi nitasema nini? I have no reason. Niko na experience ya kutosha. Nimekuwa mjumbe miaka 15. Nimekuwa naibu wa rais miaka 10. Sio experience inatosha? Mimi sio mzee sana. Si mimi ni kijana, mimi naelewa kufanya maneno. Ama namna gani? Mimi nimesoma ya kutosha. Hatujawahi kuwa na daktari ambaye ni rais wa nchi. Mimi, si ndio? Mimi ni mtu naelewa. Mimi nimezaliwa huko mashinani. Sasa shida ya Kenya mimi naelewa. Sasa mimi nitasema nimekosa kufanya hii kazi kwa sababu gani? I have no reason. I don't have an excuse. So I have to do the difficult job.
Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, speaking there while he was hosting a delegation from Tharaka Nithi County at State House. And President seems to have his back against the ropes, and this is not the first time we're hearing him defend himself and defend his track record and defend his qualifications for the same. And we might want to point out, I mean, I think obviously since 2024, with the protests against the finance bill, there's been quite a bit of pressure that's been loading on the president and the executive and his government in terms of performance, in terms of promises made, and in terms of what the delivery has been like. And on this one now, choosing to, go out there, perhaps more than we have seen in the past, and hopefully we'll take a look at some of those other instances where, Jamila, he has defended himself, but this by far being the most robust defense, self-defense or appraisal that we have seen from the president?
Because that's exactly it. Why is this an issue? Why are we talking about it? Because you say it's the most robust. Why should it be an issue, Rais akijipiga kifua? It's because it's the first time that we're seeing our head of state, akijipiga kifua na kujisifu about his qualifications and what he's able to do or what he has done. We've not had this, at least not here in Kenya. Not the same can be said in the US, because the president talks about the biggest crowd, the best this, the most beautiful this, the most beautiful that. Yeah. But here we've not had instances where we have our president speaking like that. And I think, isn't it more prudent or better to let those who elected you wakupigie debe, or sing your praises or talk about how qualified you are for the job, by eventually re-electing you, probably at the ballot, because they'll re-elect you if they feel you have done a good job. Yeah. And I think what is more important, Yvonne, is a self-assessment in terms of what the promises were during the campaigns and vis-a-vis what has been delivered now that this government has been in power for almost 3 years. This is August 7th, if we count from September when the president was sworn in. So it should be a self-assessment of what have we done so far. In fact, they need to do a lot of monitoring and evaluation, looking at things that have been done, what has succeeded, what hasn't, why hasn't it, or why has it, what should we change, or what should we allow to stay the same. Because talking about his qualifications, even as a PhD holder, what does that have to do with him being a good president? I don't think there's anyone out there who voted for Dr. William Ruto because he is Dr. William Ruto. Those who voted for him voted for him because of maybe the promises that he made, maybe about the bottom-up economic model, the promises he made to women, the promises he made to the different groups, the promises he made about the economy and everything. I don't think anyone elected him because he has a PhD. Yeah. And I think it is important that the perception that people have about you, you should hear what people think about you, what they say about you. Because when you put yourself out there as a head of state, Yvonne, you put yourself mbele ya watu, mbele ya umma, to be judged. Yeah. You've put yourself out there to be questioned. You've put yourself out there for anything you say or do to be put under scrutiny. Kwa sababu umejiweka mbele ya umma na ni wao ambao wamekuchagua. So I think it's important for the president, yes, he has the qualifications he's talking about, but I think it's more important for the work that he has done or will do to speak for him. And if people are happy with him and what he has done, then wao ndo watapatiana assessment kwa kumchagua tena.
Right. Yeah. And perhaps even let history do that, right? Like, looking back in time, maybe that's perhaps another way to look at it. And we'll get to perhaps some of the reasons that his back is to the ropes. But to be fair, Jay, he's he's had a bit of a rough time over the last 2 years, wouldn't you say?
Indeed. I think, and self-appraisal at this time is not a bad approach. It's mid-term, you can say, 2.5 years, almost 3 years in, and he needs somebody, or he needs to evaluate himself. But like all of us know very well, self-appraisals are very dangerous because they come in with a lot of bias and inaccuracies. And most of the time when you self-appraise, you tend to look at your own view of things and you ignore your weaknesses. So you will anchor it on your strengths, but ignore your weaknesses. The tragedy of that is if the feedback that is given does not align with this appraisal, then there's a collision. And that is what we are actually seeing in the country right now. Because from where I sit, the president really feels he has done well. He really feels he's anchored this nation where it's supposed to be. But the citizenry are not of the same view. The feedback that comes in every day, every week, every month tells a different thing. And with that, it erodes the credibility in that institution of the presidency. That you see the president talk, he illustrates all these things that he believes he has done and done well, but as a person, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, it is not measurable. Then you start questioning and doubting him. And therefore, I think this is the point that the president really should not self-appraise. He should listen more to the feedback that the citizens are giving. And probably, if he has to say everything that he needs to say about his qualifications and what he has done, it is the point where we ask, where are the presidents meant to do this on his behalf? Yeah. Because the moment he goes out there and says all these things that I've done, the buck stops with him. Yeah. And when the flack comes, it goes directly to him. Yeah. So he needs a buffer. Yeah. That will help him self-reflect. That if my people goes out there and they say this about my work, then this is the feedback they're getting. Then where is the mismatch? Where do we adjust? But as it is, he's missing the blind spots. Yeah. Because he sees and addresses it from his strengths and point of view and nobody else's.
Yeah, you raise an interesting point, one about the proverbial court justice. Can I call them that? You know, where you have the courtiers in your palace and who, you know, would tout your praises and your accolades. But also because it would seem, Linus, that the president would sometimes find himself fairly exposed because he speaks on a number of issues, if not all of them, whilst he is the CEO, if you like, of the country. But is there a level to which he leaves himself fairly exposed by being the one who will talk about everything from vaccinating cows to the Hustler Fund, to policy, to the bottom-up economic agenda, to Kenya's foreign policy, to a number of all these other issues, so that then what happens is the guns of all Kenyans who might be unhappy with him are directed straight at him, rather than maybe giving himself some sort of plausible deniability by saying, oh, well, that was my minister or cabinet secretary who said that, and, you know, we'll rein him in, or that sort of thing. But he does put himself out there. Now, that may be, you know, a fair style of leadership, one would say, is, you know, a more frontal approach, you know, taking the reins and more publicly, would imagine.
There is a thread to this self-appraisal by President William Ruto. He has done it many times. And what we sometimes have to do is to differentiate. Is it talking about his role as President of the Republic of Kenya, or is it talking about his journey, personal journey as William Ruto, starting from his days as a young person in the North Rift all the way to becoming president? And there are times I feel he's thinking out aloud. There's a lot of pinching of the skin to say, I mean, you remember in Nakuru, he said, I look around at this state house and sometimes wonder, oh, kumbe ni mimi sasa, so it's me. You see, there's an element of celebrating self-actualization, that he's made it in this journey, starting from his youth to becoming president. But he invites questions about his handling of the presidency, where he starts talking about the qualities of the previous presidents. And I think you sat here, you remember you sat here with Okiya Omtata on this set, who is a presidential aspirant, who felt the question really is not about that of qualification, but that of suitability. And this definitely is one of those questions that a self-appraisal like this can invite. And I think I want us to listen to Omtata talking about qualification and not suitability.
Talking about qualifications, not suitability. And I'm very happy he did not say he has integrity. He never told us he has integrity. Look at all those attributes he has given himself. None says he has integrity, that he cannot steal from us, that he cannot mismanage the economy. He's just saying he's gone to school, he has been in parliament, he has been whatever, but he's not telling us he has got integrity. What did he do in parliament? What's his track record in parliament? What is his track record as a minister? What is his track record as a president? And I agree with him that if he is allowed to continue, we shall not recognize Kenya. Kenya will be a basket case. It will be dead, it will be gone.
Yeah, and those are some of the questions right there that the president is exposing himself to. That you want to do self-appraisal, then you will hear questions like, what is your track record as president? What is your track record as member of parliament? What is your track record as cabinet minister those days? And what is your track record in the totality of your political journey? So self-appraisal can be good, but self-appraisal can also be dangerous. Last point, and this is to what Joseph was also referred to, and that is the fact that President William Ruto has been under a lot of pressure politically. Perhaps it can be said that he's had the toughest 2 years of any president. Well, if you're talking about comparison with his predecessors, I think he's had the toughest first 2 years. So tough that at some point he's had to deal with serious demonstrations of youth who want him out of office. He's also had to deal with an impeachment process against his deputy. So it's been an extremely tough start. Tough in a way that he's had to fight back. And to fight back has included reminding himself and reminding Kenyans of his qualifications, suitability. I have the energy, I'm young, I have the ability. There was a time he also spoke about agent of destiny. All these things that other people should say about you, is hard to say it himself. And that also is an indication of the kind of pressure he's been living under.
Right. And
yes, Yvonne, yeah. And just one point before you take over. And what does he want people to remember him by or associate him with when they think about President William Ruto? Okay, of course, he still has this term to go and he's running the next election. But what is the perception people have of him as a president? Lina's mentioned that he's had one of the most difficult periods, considering all those things that have happened in the past almost 3 years. When he speaks like that, or when you think of President William Ruto, do you think about the development maybe he has done, or do you think about the impeachment, or do you think about the abductions, or do you think about the demonstrations, or do you think about corruption, or do you think about promises that are being made and not kept? Do you think about the number of reshuffles that have happened in his cabinet, or do you think about broad-based, the arrangement that he has now with ODM? Or do you think about the opposition that he's facing? What exactly is this administration all about, specifically him? Because I think it's that perception of what people say or think, and Thomas alluded to it, that he needs to start listening to what people are saying, look at the comments, what the responses to what you say is being said online. Whenever anyone posts anything by government or himself, the comments usually are totally insulting. Yeah. What exactly should people think about when you think of you as a president of Kenya? Not anyone else wa nje wa Kenya wenyewe. Because do the ones who voted for you overwhelmingly and put you in power still think the same about you? If elections were held today, would they still vote for you? So those, I think, what should be important for him and for him to achieve what he wants, which is maybe that love and adoration from people, he should do what he had promised to do, which is keep all those promises. People having issues with healthcare, how can we sort that out? There are issues with education and capitation. How do we sort that out? There are issues about university funding. How is that dealt with? We have youth unemployment. What do we do to deal with that? Because even when they launch all these policies, what is the follow-up? What is the follow-through to actually make sure that things have been implemented? Because even for most Kenyans, the basics are what they want. Food, education for their children, healthcare, a roof over their heads, and jobs. Are you providing that?
Yeah. And, you know, it would seem he's been defending himself from the start, and we've seen an evolution of how that has been. Right now, it's that I'm qualified for the job and this is what we're doing. And you see this perhaps with everything. No, we will continue to provide free primary education. No, the Hustler Fund is working. Okay, but in the beginning, the tone was perhaps slightly different. It was that I was legitimately elected, and the tone was mimi ndio niko kwa sasa for whatever anyone else had. And that at that time, if you recall, it was ODM before getting into the broad-based arrangement that, you know, was putting him under pressure, right? And then at that time, it then moved to now the Gen Z protests and the Kenyans now saying, okay, let's take a look at your track record. But just to show you how this has been something on his mind for a long time, you know, let's listen to this one where he was, you know, again, reminding Kenyans that he was validly elected at the ballot.
Watu walikuwa na matatizo sana. Hata saa hizi bado hawajaamini mimi ni rais, bado wanahangaika Mimi ndio niko hapa kwa sasa. Wajipange. Mimi ndio niko hapa.
So is there an element of shadow boxing? So who are these people that he is referring to that says bado hawajaamini ni kina nani hao? And it would seem there are voices in the president's head from, I don't know, who doesn't believe it, regardless of whether they do or not. The law says it, the Supreme Court affirmed the win, and then now it is, I'm the most qualified to do this job, and I'm the holder of destiny. It would seem there are many voices in his head that are constantly challenging him and his presidency that gets him into this defense mode that we're seeing repeatedly. And you know, for a long time, I think we can safely say that has spanned, you know, the first half of his first term. Jay, there's...
True that. If you look at the numbers at the last general election for the presidency, he narrowly won the seat. And I think in the initial phases, facing the pressures and the challenges he was from the opposition, it was maybe justified. But I think 2 years into the game, he needed to have settled into the office and do the job that Kenyans elected him to do. And I think the other issue that emerges from this self-appraisal is that the voices of the key pillars of his administration, especially the cabinet secretaries, have been muzzled because you don't hear them on critical issues in their docket. You'll hear the president speak about Hustler Fund, which is solely under the ambits of Wycliffe Oparanya, but you don't hear him speak about it. You'll hear this president speak so loudly about SHA and how it's working than Aden Duale. You'll hear him speak about free secondary education, university education louder than Julius Ogamba. And that begs the question that at what point are the ministers allowed to speak, or do they have that leeway to pronounce themselves on certain issues that concerns their dockets? Because once the president speaks about it, you can't contradict him, even if the data he's giving is wrong, if the statistics he's giving is wrong. So I think the president should allow his men to go out there and speak best and say what they can. Then, if at all there's need to retract, there's at all there's need to amend, then he comes now as the bigger person that corrects everything. But as it is, he speaks, they've got no voice.
Right. Another place where he's spoken recently, and maybe where the appraisal might be beyond our borders, and that's at the US Congress. And again, just talking about when the president speaks. So I'd like us to listen to another front that he might be getting appraisal on, and that is in the United States. Now, the reason there is a bit of uproar in the Congress is because of President William Ruto saying this on a recent state visit to China.
African state visit to China this year mirrors my 2024 visit to the United States, the first African state visit there in 15 years. Perhaps, symbolically, Kenya can serve as a bridge between East and West, North and South, in an era of deepening geopolitical tensions.
Nairobi is yet to issue...
All right, and it was what he said after that that got some leaders in America concerned.
China are not merely trade partners. We are co-architects of a new world order, one that is fair, inclusive, and sustainable.
And of course, there was the reaction that was very swift. Let's listen to Senator Risch on responding a couple of weeks later, 5-4, on that.
Nations maintain troubling ties with China, including key national security partners. Just last month, President Ruto declared that Kenya a major non-NATO ally and China are co-architects of a new world order. It's time to reassess our relationship with Kenya and others who forge tight bonds with China. And it isn't just an embracement of China, but also the, quote, new world order, end quote.
And of course, we know then what happened, in Congress earlier this week. It was now taking the statements from that expression of concern to actually doing something about it on the floor of the House. We wait to see. I think it's about, 90 to 180 days for us to understand that. But the president was not done. In fact, he then went ahead to double down on why the relationship with China remains beneficial to Kenya.
The high-level conversation with China. They have agreed to a reciprocal arrangement between Kenya and China. They have agreed to remove all the tariffs on our tea, on our coffee, on our avocado, and all other agricultural exports. That, I think, is a major breakthrough for us. We are now finalizing the bilateral instruments, and Lee can give us some progress report on that, so that in the next couple of months, we should be able to take advantage of that huge market. It's partly why I have a bit of a problem with some of our friends, but it is what I must do for Kenya.
Linus.
Well, foreign policy is, not just for Kenya, but for nations around the world, a big test for leaders, a major, major test, because it's about balancing the interests and relationships, and they can be as complex as we've just seen, where President William Ruto's 3-year-old administration found itself in the historical West and historical East. And somehow lands into some trouble because of a statement that was made at the Peking University about Kenya and China being
joint co-architect.
Yes, of a new world order.
Yeah.
Now, when you say new world order, you are rattling some really big powers, because the new world order is a concept that was born out of the post-Second World War arrangement, where now the victors of the World War in 1945 then decided to organize the globe around certain principles. And it will be remembered that also one of the complex issues that then followed after that is the Cold War, which was actually a major test for Kenyan leaders, starting with Jomo Kenyatta, who became president in 1963, actually 64, when the constitution was changed, and followed by President Daniel Arap Moi in 1978, that the height of Cold War, running all the way to the, first end of the Cold War, which was October 1990, when the Berlin Wall collapsed. Now, for President Ruto, I'm very certain that he should feel lucky that it was in the 60s, it was in the 70s, and it wasn't even the 80s, when these geopolitical issues were so consequential. These days, things have cooled down because the Cold War has come to an end, sort of, especially with the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, that's the USSR. So a lot has changed. The environment is much more different. But what doesn't change is the balancing of these interests. And President Ruto finds himself in that very unenviable space where facing east or facing west is a major question. There was a time, I think it was during the President Mwai Kibaki's time, that question of facing east, are you facing east or west? And there was a very nice retort, which should actually be adopted in Kenya's diplomacy, which is, no, we're not looking east or west, we're looking forward. Yeah. We're looking ahead. And Kenya's foreign policy is actually structured around multilateralism and non-alignment with any side. But, you know, you're just back from being crowned as a major non-NATO ally. That is very, very big. But it also imposes on you unspoken responsibilities. It actually prevents you from a number of independent things like walking the red carpet in Beijing and saying what you'd like. Because as a major non-NATO ally, you've actually quit the non-aligned space. Ally is the word that then produces alignment. Right. Now you are aligned to the West. So I think it's a big lesson for the country. I mean, you have to decide what you want way before you do it, because there is no room for trial and error. Trial and error can be costly. Now, look, it's really sad to talk about relations between the U.S. and Kenya, sort of suffering a little jolt from this conversation, especially on a night that, do you know, today is 27 years since the August 7th bomb blast. Because it is our perceived alliance with the United States that exposed us to Al-Qaeda. That's right. Al-Qaeda hit Nairobi because of our perceived close ties with the U.S.
And not once.
Not once. It's been repeated since then quite a number of times. Then there are these historical ties that date as far back as the 60s that cannot be wished away. So this is a very interesting diplomatic issue to watch in the coming days. And, you know, our thoughts to the foreign affairs diplomatic experts, because there are people in this country who actually go to school to do diplomacy. They know these things, and Kenya has a very strong base of experienced diplomats, only that we're running through different times where diplomats will not be seen. It's more of political appointees that take the front. I saw a foreign affairs secretary, who is also the prime cabinet secretary, trying his best to put it in diplomatic terms what this situation is all about. And honestly, I didn't understand what he said. So, but it sounded diplomatic.
Well, yeah, at the very least. And I think, you know, for those who are saying that the first statement that he made at Peking University was blown out of proportion, but then when he doubled down on that yesterday, it leaves no doubt. But, you know, in the past, what we've witnessed has been quiet diplomacy, right? All this back channeling that happens, behind the scenes. Now we're seeing a more direct, overt approach. I guess that will be interesting to see how it plays out, and when it is said by none other than what I would imagine would be the top diplomat, of this country. Let's see how it plays out. But
because Yvonne, we find out. I think 20 seconds, Rob. I know we need to take a break. I think Kenya is also finding itself in the middle of two countries, big countries that are locked in a supremacy contest. Because we've seen since the other administration, just this one of Trump, the tariffs issue, for instance, just that one. The U.S. imposes tariffs on China. China imposes tariffs on the U.S. It happens again and again. Mpaka imefika Mali, the U.S. imposed tariff on African countries. China has removed all tariffs on African countries except Eswatini. Yeah. So they're endearing themselves to us, but at the same time, they are in this supremacy contest with the U.S. But then, even I think the administration in Kenya is to look at what such an altercation with the U.S. would mean to even Kenyans who live in the U.S. We've seen instances of other countries, since this administration came into power, get into trouble. Visa restrictions. For instance, no more 5-year visas for some African countries. It can only take about 6 months. You have to have $15,000 deposited if you're going to go to the U.S. So, there are all these things that are coming in the wake of having any altercations with the U.S. Right. Are we ready to get into something like that?
I know.
Yeah? So I think tuanze kuangalia shida zetu manage watu waje.
Many will remember what Ramaphosa saw at the White House. Hopefully that is not something that
so white walls.
He saw white walls, total whitewash. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will now talk about more local issues. Wow, what a week of scandals, at least 3 big ones this week. We'll get into that when we return here on the program.